radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right, we're back. We're live. Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Monday, February 24th, 2020, 55 days into the new year, only 311 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. For KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? Tonight, very special guest, Jason Quitt is here for our Quittspiracy Special event. Tomorrow night, Deep Prasad joins the show for a full night of UFO conversation. Wednesday night is our Lloyd Pye Special, and Thursday night, it's Fader Night with open lines all night long. There are many conspiracy theories that have captured the attention of millions, such as 9/11, the Flat Earth, Inner Earth, Nazi moon bases, MK Ultra, Operation Northwoods, the Denver International Airport, Planet X, and Antarctica. Now that's just naming, the list is long, right? And tonight we're going to find out from Jason which ones are real, and we'll see if he knows what he's talking about, and what should we be looking at, right? Whether it's real or not. Later in the show, if we have time, we'll open up the phone lines and we'll get your take on what is really going on. And if you have any conspiracy theories of your own. Jason is a graduate of the Institute of Energy Wellness, student of the Algonquin Shamanism, and has been training and working with many teachers, shamans, and traditional healers from around the world. He's also the author of Forbidden Knowledge, Revelations of a Multi-Dimensional Time Traveler, The Egyptian Postures of Power, Ancient Qigong, and Yosef Codes. Now, this is the thing. I just got my Egyptian Postures of Power stone. What do you call them when you hold them in your hands, Jason?
The Pharaoh rods.
Yeah, I got me a pair. I was gifted them.
Very nice.
Yeah, I was gifted them. Weren't cheap either, by the way. They was not cheap. And but I picked them up, and one's positive and one's negative. And it's trippy because we need to move on quickly, but I wanted to share this with you. I don't know how I segued into this so quickly. If your eyes are closed and you don't know which, you can feel them going from hand to hand. You know the difference. One is alive and one is dead. You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it. That's my description of what's going on. It's trippy, man.
Well, one of them is electroconductive and one is piezoelectric. So you have this type of electrical potential that you're holding in your hands. And you will feel, most people feel like a tingling sensation coming through their left arm where they're holding the left cylinder.
Right.
And the right hand is more of like a grounder. So it's pulling the energy electrons through the body. So your description is perfect.
Yeah, it was weird. So I put them in my hand, I closed my eyes, and I did an astro body transport to IHOP, and I was having breakfast. It was incredible, man. I even tasted the maple syrup. Okay, so moving on.
Well,
I had to get that in there, man. I had to get that in there. Now, before we get started, Jason, tonight, what is it about a conspiracy? You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to hear something and go, okay, wow, I didn't know that. And then the next thing you know, it takes off. What is it about conspiracy theories that just intrigue us?
I believe it's part of this storytelling in our society. And we always are looking for mysteries. And the world we live in, we're very untrustworthy of the powers in control. And we always think that maybe they're not in the best interests towards us. So it's very easy for a conspiracy theory, true or untrue, to spread like wildfire through a specific community.
It happens all the time. And if you go back throughout history and you look at the different conspiracies, I mean, in deep history, you can start at, World War I. You can go back to England and the different conspiracies throughout all of the kings and queens going back hundreds of years to modern day Parliament and the conspiracy theories that are there. And of course, the Illuminati and things that were established with the Rothschilds in Europe. And you just keep going further back, and there is a conspiracy theory for that time period. And some of them were based in truth, right? But it was something that once somebody hears it, the response is, I knew it, because they don't have the answer, right? So they go to, I knew it. I knew that there was something going on. And we see it time and time again, all the way through to today, where we have so many conspiracy theories and conspiracies that are going on today. You almost can't keep up with it, can you?
No, and the conspiracies today, they're very intelligent, a lot of them. And if they have, let's say, like historical data in the conspiracy theory, if they're connected to certain events or people, and you tell it in that conspiracy theory, if it's just plausible enough, if it's just believable enough, many people will say that sounds completely right, and it fits in my belief system of what's already happening in the world. So it's very easy to have, I would say, a false conspiracy theory that sounds very plausible. And I've seen a bunch of those.
I know.
just scouring online.
It's pretty crazy. And I went, just off the top of my head, as we're starting to put this show together, and I'm going to let everybody know, we're going to start with Flat Earth for a lot of reasons. But as I'm putting my list together, you put your list together, and we kind of cross-checked those, and some were there. You had some that were not on my list, and vice versa. I put together a list pretty quickly of about 30, and just off the top of my head, had I jumped onto the internet and started looking at popular conspiracy theories, that list would have expanded. The list, as I started to really look at it, could be a couple of hundred strong. And it's not that hard to get to that kind of number, because the amount of conspiracies out there are incredible. And some of them are real. And this is the other part. The reason why we're starting with the flat Earth is the flat Earth goes back a couple of thousand years. This is not some modern, there's this flat Earth resurgence of late, but flat Earth goes back a long ways. And when you go back in time and you look at some of these conspiracies, when some turn out to be true and somebody brings up a conspiracy theory, today they go, well, Operation Northwoods was real, and they haven't heard of it. They look up Operation Northwoods and find out that it was real and what it consisted of, and then you're forced to go back and look at 9/11 and go, there may be something here because this part is real. And just like the flat Earth, when you start to put this stuff together, there's enough fact in there that it starts to change people's minds. And the more that you do that, the more entrenched they become in their belief, and then you can't bend them off of it, can you?
No, it's very difficult, especially the conspiracy theory itself can take over the reality of the person. And they basically have to tune out physical reality itself to just be in focus and in tune with this new belief system. And it could be very damaging for a person to have that type of commitment to a belief that is not true.
And we can look at, of course, the tragedy that happened this weekend with Mad Mike Hughes. The thing about this is he was a flat earther, and he had a goal of building these homemade rockets. And it ended in his tragic death, trying to see if he could fly up high enough to see if the Earth was flat, and he can come back with proof. And I cite another example of going into danger zone is the whole Pizzagate Comet Pizza conspiracy that spread like wildfire all over the net. And the next thing you know, you got a guy showing up at Comet Pizza in Washington, D.C. with an automatic rifle and ready to go and do some damage. And you can't, at that point, convince him that the conspiracy is real or not, but these people are willing to take it to the next level and put their life on the line. And that's where things get pushed a little bit too far, right?
And this is why this is actually the genesis of this whole Quittspiracy thing came from. And it came from Twitter, actually, with a group of, the common people that we're always associating with on Twitter.
Right.
I blame it on Pat, actually. It's Pat's fault, Pat Breeze. But, one day I'm on Twitter and this story comes up in my feed and I see it starting to gain a lot of attention. And it's some conspiracy theory or some information that I just knew from my research from even years ago that it was total nonsense. Like, it was just completely made up. And suddenly I see this made up story come back into the forefront of my news feed as if it was some new discovery and people are jumping on it and spreading it like wildfire. And, when I'm watching this happen in real time, I say, I've come to the point in my UFO conspiracy career where all I'm doing is yelling at my computer screen that, no, that's not true. And I wanted to kind of go into these conspiracy theories that, and many of them are true, but many of them are not. And what I have been doing lately is going back in time. And I think this is what you were talking about with the flat earth, is I like to look at a conspiracy theory now and just go back in time to try to find out where was the first time this was mentioned?
Right.
Who mentioned it? What books did it come from? And I'm trying to gain this kind of historical context to why people believe this certain conspiracy. And usually when I do that, it blows my mind, because not only it shows me that, the conspiracy theory is more story than historical fact, but that other conspiracies related to that original conspiracy is very popular right now.
So let's start with flat Earth. And as we started to put this show together, you can never predict the future, but to have the tragic death 2 days ago of Mad Mike Hughes here in Southern California, trying to prove flat Earth theory was just unexpected. And so I want to start with this. Our thoughts are with the Hughes family and everybody that was around Mike, and certainly right here in Southern California, not very far from where we broadcast, right up in the Mojave Desert. He launched a rocket, and I watched the video. I watched it twice. I watched it once by myself. I watched it once with Rita, and it was unbelievable to see that go down. So let's start with the flat Earth, getting the ending of out of the way first. Where did this actually originate? How many years ago?
I would put no date on the flat Earth theory, because it comes from myths and legends that are before recorded history. And those myths and legends had to do with ancient people observing their natural land. They may climb up a mountain and look around and see, like they're on an island, for example. They see water around them, And their perspective of the world is basically a flat earth, an island, land, and being surrounded by water. And if you go back to, the oldest, even before the Bible, like back to Egypt, it talks about Geb and Nun, the earth and the sky. It talks about how the earth is like a flat disk of land that's surrounded by water. Many civilizations and cultures thought that the end of the world was the actual horizon. So if you tried to go to the horizon, you would just fall off. There's even some cultures that believe the earth was not just flat, but the earth was a cube in ancient cultures. So you have many of these myths and legends. And the ones that are really prominent today are the ones that come from the Bible, or books that were written about the Bible and the flat earth that came around the 19th century.
Now, the ancient Egyptians, and staying on this for a second, when I talk to a flat earther, the one thing that I try to have them understand is that hundreds, if not thousands, of scientists and researchers and philosophers for a couple of thousand years have been persecuted, heresy, killed, imprisoned. They gave up their life in pursuit of trying to figure out if the earth was round and how big it was. And they proved all of this beyond any doubt. It became part of proof and part of fact. But they want to throw all of that out the window. And that's one of the issues that I take strongly with. But when I bring this up, all it does is cement their belief, right? It makes them strong. Their will, it can't be broken. And I don't understand that part of this where nobody wants to bend here and say, you know what, okay, I'm going to take another look at this. You can't do that when you bring up facts. It just makes their position stronger, doesn't it?
Yes, and it also comes down to belief and fundamentalism of ancient text and knowledge. And there's many people that believe that every word, for example, in the Bible is 100% fact. And anything outside of that goes to question the word of God is here in the world to test that person's faith. So there's people that are very, very rigid in their information. Just as, try to explain to a person that the earth is more than 6,000 years old. And I have to tell you, I've met people like that, and they have yelled at me. I've had Baptist ministers yell at me in public for telling people that a stone is a couple billion years old.
Now, they went back, if we go back to ancient Egypt, where this was one of the first engineering exercises to figure out the circumference of the earth, and that the earth was round. This experiment that was done south of Alexandria, tell us about that.
Well, this is such a simple story, and it should be simple. And science should be amazing like this. The person that figured out the circumference of the Earth down to the exact kilometers, pretty much the exact kilometers of the Earth's surface, he did it with a stick, just a stick. Okay? A stick in math proved the Earth was round. Okay, it doesn't get more simple than that. And there is a place just north of Alexandria. It's called Cyan. And basically, at the summer solstice, right at noon, the sun is directly above this city. And when you put a stick on the ground, it casts no shadow. The shadow is right above, so it's a vertical shadow right down. And he wanted to see if he planted the stick on the same day in Alexandria, would it be the same shadow? And when he duplicated the experiment, it wasn't the same shadow. In fact, it was about a 7.2 degree shadow cast from the stick. And so right then and there, he knew that this proves that the Earth is curved. Now, the next thing he did was actually genius. He then figured out, he said, well, if we know the circumference of a circle is 360 degrees, we have to find the distance between Alexandria and where there is no shadow. So they walked from Alexandria to the other city, and it was about 800 kilometers between the two cities. So all he had to do was simple math. 7.2 degrees is 1/50th of a 300-degree angle, 300-degree curve.
360.
360 curve.
Right.
And then, if you just do simple math, 800 kilometers times 50 equals 4,000 kilometers.
40,000.
Sorry, 40,000. Geez, it's late in Canada, just to let you know, and I'm sorry.
It's just that I took American math in public school, and 800 times 50. But anyway, yes, okay, yes. So 40,000 kilometers is the circumference of the Earth, according to him at that time, but that's all he had to go on was the distance between the two cities.
That's correct, and just a stick. So he figured this all out with just a stick in his calculations. Now, it took 2,000 years to verify this. All right, so we come into our time period where we first sent satellites up into space that had scientific equipment to actually measure the Earth. And that came back literally the exact same dimension.
Yeah, and what was amazing about this, when I had read about the satellite measurements, the first official exact, to the centimeter diameter of the Earth along the equator. It was off by a very, very short amount. I mean, a very short distance, quarter of a mile. And when you think about this, where this was done 2,000 years ago by this simple process, but came up with this measurement that stood, by the way, his measurement stood for 2,000 years. They just sent up satellites and double checked, right?
Yeah.
But that's what was so incredible about this, and once that was established, that's what was used throughout time after that.
Yeah, and there are many ways to do this, and it was a tragedy what happened, and there's a lot of people supporting the person in the rocket who passed, and there's simpler ways of figuring out the curvature. And another way of doing this, if you don't want to use the sticks, we have access to motor vehicles today, right? So if you really want to calculate the curvature of the Earth, all you have to do is find the straightest highway there is, drive about 800, first find a star in the sky and mark it. That star in the sky, the degrees where that star is, drive south 800 kilometers, and then the next night at the exact same time, take another measurement of that star in the sky, and you will see that it's moved about 7 degrees in the sky. So you can measure that curvature again. And if you drive east to west, it won't move. It'll stay in the same position, which shows again another way that anybody, just with simple measurements and distance, can figure out the entire circumference of the planet.
Now, there's something else interesting here, and we've got a lot more to discuss with Flat Earth, and we'll pick this up after the break. But we've all seen the video that went viral of the rocket hitting the glass dome, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is what is true. So that was proof, right? That was proof, and so I found the original video, right? That doesn't have the sound effect dubbed in, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, and it is not even close to what this other video is. But nobody wants to watch the original video. The other video with the rocket hitting the glass dome that is over the flat Earth is proof that NASA altered the original video. This is and again, it just absolutely cements them into their argument further. And it's incredible to me. Why is it that people are willing to create a video like that when they know it's not real? Somebody took the original video, dropped in sound effects, and threw it out there on the net for proof of the flat earth when it is a completely hoax video, and it has the opposite effect.
This is how they get clicks these days. It's very sad, but they know that this will solidify a large demographic of people's beliefs, and they know it will spread. They know the original video won't get any hits.
Now, the other part, there's so much to discuss here about this, but there's another obvious situation that we have to confront and deal with if we're a flat earther. That means that every pilot, every commercial pilot, every military pilot on the planet, every astronaut that's ever flown, every captain of every ship that has ever sailed on the oceans, every teacher, everybody on the planet, right? Everybody, police, the education system, everybody on the planet is part of the conspiracy then.
Yeah.
And no whistleblowers, right? Nobody's cracked and gone public with the fact that they know that the earth is flat and they're part of the conspiracy and they want to discuss this. Isn't that something that needs to be overcome if you're a flat earther?
I think so. And it's very difficult because I have somebody that I know personally who is still to this day an absolute flat earther. And it's almost nothing that I can say to them. Even when you bring up the pilots and this and that, then they say, well, actually, there are pilots that have come forward to tell you the earth is flat.
When?
Right, exactly.
I mean, when? Bring that pilot. Oh, geez. I would love to interview that guy. Let's take a break right here. We'll continue with Flat Earth when we come back after this short break. Tonight, our guest is Jason Quitt. It's our Quittspiracy Special event. Stay with us, Jason. We'll be right back. You can follow Jason on Twitter at Jason_Quitt. Everything is up there on Twitter. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Stay with us. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Jason Quitt. Our Quittspiracy Special event. Tomorrow night, Deep Prasad's going to be here. Wednesday night, Lloyd Pye. Thursday night, Fader night. Open lines all night long. Tonight's our Quittspiracy Special. We're discussing the flat earth. And, Jason, we have a rating system here that we're going to be running tonight. It's 1 through 4 pipes. Okay.
Yes, I'm currently smoking the pipe right now.
Okay,
obviously.
so one pipe, and we'll start with we'll start in a minute with flat Earth. Oh my God! 1 pipe is eye roll. 2 pipes is plausible. 3 pipes is the conspiracy is likely, and 4 pipes is GTFO. All right. That the conspiracy is real. Okay, so it's 1 pipe eye roll, 2 pipes plausible, 3 pipes likely, 4 pipes is GTFO. All right, so we'll put up
yes, first put it up on Twitter.
Yeah, we'll get it out there. Rita's got it up here now. It's actually pretty funny. And so with that, back to flat Earth. And this is my take. All right? This is my overall assessment of flat Earth. Flat Earthers not one, not Mark Sargent, not anybody. Flat earthers do not believe the flat earth is flat. They know this. They just want to argue. They just want to debate. And they want to see how far they can take the debate. That's what I think about flat earthers. I honestly feel that in my bones. Do you have a take on that statement?
Yeah, I would give that 2 pipes.
You would give that 2 pipes. Our rating system is going up now. And here we go. I'm putting it up in Fade to Black in F2B so everybody can see the rating system. 1 pipe. So he gives that plausible.
Absolutely.
You give that 2 pipes. Okay.
And I want people to kind of see that these conspiracies actually spawn other conspiracies that are connected to it.
And we're going to get to that in just a second. Yeah, you're going with Antarctica. And before we jump to Antarctica,
yes,
one of the ideas laid forth with flat earthers is the United Nations emblem, their logo, with the flat earth there, and that the outer edge of that circle is a wall of ice, and that is Antarctica. So whenever you sail in any of those directions, you hit a wall of ice. That's taking things to a whole nother level of unbelievability to me, because obviously that's an impossibility, right?
Wait, there's more. There's more. They also spawned off a belief that Australia doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there's some listeners right now that are from Australia. So that's probably very humorous to them. Another really big one, and this also comes from the Bible, it's called the firmament. And it's like we live in this big fishbowl. And above us is not space, but space is like an ocean. It's water. So we cannot penetrate that dome. And then conspiracy theories jump off of that and they say, have you heard of Operation Fishbowl? Have you heard of that, Jimmy?
No, I haven't. Tell me about Operation Fishbowl.
Well, back in the Cold War, when they were doing nuclear tests, Russia was sending up very high altitude nuclear weapons to explode in the high ionosphere. And the U.S. and its allies as well were sending nuclear weapons to very high altitudes and igniting them. So this is a true operation. It's called Operation Fishbowl. Anybody could look it up. But a flat earther will say that the Operation Fishbowl was an attempt by all governments to breach the firmament and escape the planet.
But if that happened, then we would let space in. Right? Our glass dome protection would be gone. Now, there is another thing that we got to put forward here. We are the only planet that is flat, but Mars isn't, Venus isn't, Jupiter isn't, Saturn isn't, our moon isn't, the sun is, everything is round except for Earth. And it was built by aliens, apparently. Now, I laugh after each one of these because it just doesn't make any sense. And that underneath, so gravity is created from magnetics on the backside of our flat Earth, right? This is the other idea that's put forward, and that's how gravity works.
Yeah, and that the firmament is actually a type of hologram or type of a projection, so that the stars, the planets, the sun and the moon is just almost like a Truman Show projection, and we're living in a completely artificial environment.
Now, what about things that aren't magnetic? How does gravity work with that?
Ask a flat earther.
Yeah. It just doesn't make any sense. It's vacuum.
And this is also, we're in the age of the internet where there's so much information and so many YouTube channels. And if you really want to look these things up, it's very easy. to figure out these things are true or not true.
Now, this is the okay. All right. Before we move on to Antarctica, the idea presented with the sun, where the sun is like on a pendulum and is swinging around in a circle above us, right? And that's I can't help but think, if that was the case, that I would be able to walk outside and see the sun moving in a circle in the sky. Right? How would it possibly it doesn't make any sense, this side of what they're trying to present on how we have day and night. That the sun is moving around this flat disk, and that's what is illuminated when the sun is above that part. But it doesn't. How can they possibly have that make any sense, Jason?
Well, there are places on the Earth, like the Arctic Circle, where in the summer times it is basically 24/7 sunlight, and it will travel around the sky just in the way that you're describing. So there are places on the planet that is the actual reality, and in the opposite case, you have basically perpetual night.
But, and see, this is what's crazy. Yeah. The reason why that happens is not only the tilt of the Earth and what season it is and what position the Earth is around the sun at that point of the year, and our 24-hour cycle of night and day. All of that math, all of the physics and cosmology that has been proven that is the case. That is why the Earth is round.
Exactly.
That is not why the Earth is flat. It's funny to me. It's absolutely funny. Have you seen, what's the documentary that's out?
Oh, something about the curve.
Yeah, Beyond the Curve.
Beyond the Curve. Yes.
Have you seen that documentary?
Of course I have. It was great.
It was great, actually. It was great for so many reasons. So let's talk about Antarctica now, because this is part of this is a continuation of the flat Earth. Antarctica is something that has been part of conspiracy theories all the way back to when it was discovered, and actually beyond that, if you go back to the Perry Reese map and some of the ancient maps throughout history, where Antarctica was always there before it was discovered by the Russians in like 1817 or 1819, something like that.
Yes, and I don't know if I would call the mapping of Antarctica a conspiracy. I think it's an absolute oddity, for one, but it just shows that it was mapped by some type of civilization or ships way before it. It was explored. So we have to come to the possibility that, there are people out there that have explored these areas before we would consider modern age.
Okay, let's start offending people right now. Let's go with conspiracy number one.
Okay, so, and this is very prevalent in almost the entire UFO narrative. And so, yes, I may offend people with this. And this number one conspiracy is the Nazis have a secret Antarctica base called New Schwabenland. And that after World War II, the Nazis escaped to this base in Antarctica, and they're there right now. And to add to this, they also say that they have UFO technology, the Nazis in these bases, and they work side by side in a joint base with negative ETs. And in our conspiracy world, we talk about those negative ETs as reptilian. So right off the bat, just listening to those words I just said, Nazis have a base in Antarctica. They have UFOs, high technology, and they work with aliens.
And when we start to pick this apart, and I have interviewed dozens and dozens of researchers on this very story. And this is the thing, even going back to like Copernicus and Galileo, all the way up to Edwin Hubble, where there was a pretty solid argument all the way up to 1924 and to 1930 that there was no universe. The universe was our Milky Way. And there was evidence on both sides, but there were very solid scientists that still believed that there was just a wall of stars out there, and that's it, and that's where it ended. And it's very hard to convince others. And now going to Antarctica with this is that there are certain facts that are historical record that start to support this theory. And there's no question about the Nazis flew over Antarctica dropping Nazi flags out of airplanes all over Antarctica to claim that section of Antarctica as New Swabiland. And that this is part of the historical record, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely fact. It's 4 pipes, 100%. That's what they did.
4 pipes, GTFO.
Yeah, absolutely.
And did the Nazis ever establish a base down there?
No, they really didn't. And this is where the historical facts start to take another story. There was a base that came, but it was in the 1980s. And they were, okay, so Germany, the Nazis, they did go down to the Antarctica in 1939. All right.
Okay.
They went there. They did their thing, but the reason they went there is because they were the second largest purchaser of Norwegian whale oil. Okay, it was whale oil back then was a very, very important commodity to Germany and all over the world, and they imported 200,000 metric tons every single year.
200,000 metric tons
of whale oil from a Norwegian station where New Swabiland was claimed. It was originally claimed by the Norwegians who had a facility there, and they were processing the whale oil there, and they would exchange it with people from around the world. But the second largest importer was the Germans and the Nazis.
So the Germans wanted this supply of whale oil for themselves, and they were going to claim this section of Antarctica as their own and take it from the Norwegians, right? Am I understanding this correctly?
Yes, that's what happened. So in 1938, it was sent out a secret expedition, and that's what you were talking about, where they went down with a ship, where they went down with planes, and they would basically fly over Antarctica in the New Swabiland area, dropping flags and basically mapping it. And these pictures are available. There are museums that have thousands of these pictures of them flying over the Antarctic, dropping these flags. And they basically claimed it as their territory. And this was the start of World War II. And the Germans and the Nazis knew that they were going into war. So they decided that, you know what, this is a really good place to put a German naval base right on that shore of where the Norwegians were processing the whale oil.
But it never got built.
It never got built. They were there for literally less than 3 months before returning to Germany.
So did after World War II, what happened with the claims of New Swabiland?
Well, obviously the Norwegians disputed the land claims, and they were fighting it with others. Also France and the UK and a lot of other countries were fighting these land claims from Germany. And in 1945, at the end of the war, all German claims of that regions were just completely abandoned.
Now, what about, so what do we do? And we got to move on to other parts of Antarctica and some of the things down there. But what do we do about the claims that Adolf Hitler jumped in a submarine and went down to Antarctica in his base down there, and he survived the war?
That is one of actually the best stories from World War II. And this story is basically that Adolf Hitler and the top Nazis jumped into a secret submarine, and they fled just at the end of the war, and they went to Argentina. And then once they were in Argentina, then they took the ship to Antarctica to go to New Schwabenland, the base that was established, which wasn't established. and supposedly they're alive and well today. So that's another conspiracy theory of this. But, okay, so this was a big theory that's been around for a long time. But guess what happened in 2018? They actually discovered the missing submarine that started this conspiracy theory.
Where was it?
Off the coast of Norway.
So it never made it to Argentina.
It never made it to Argentina.
Okay.
And they doubt that anybody of that importance would have been on there. And if they were on there, they would have died in that submarine.
Okay, so let's go with conspiracy number one, that the Nazis built a secret base in Antarctica. What's your ranking on that? 1 pipe or 4 pipes?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to give this story 1 pipe.
1 pipe. I want to see what the Fadernauts out there think of the New Schwabenland secret submarine base that was built in coordination with the nasty reptilian ET race, and built it into the ice that went underneath Antarctica. And it's still occupied today by the Fourth Reich.
Yes, but there is another story that actually gives the Nazi base legs, and it's also made its way into our conspiracy world. And
is this Admiral Byrd?
This is Admiral Byrd.
Okay, so Admiral Byrd, which is Operation High Jump, I'm going to call this conspiracy number 2 with Antarctica. And there's a reason for that, because the Admiral Byrd expedition actually happened.
Yes.
That part was real. Operation High Jump was real. It's what came after that, and I'm not sure where the origination is on so many of these different conspiracy theories about Operation High Jump. All of it's compelling. All of it is interesting, and it does give credence to conspiracy number 1. What was Operation High Jump? Let's start there.
And first, I'll just say 4 pipes right out of the gate. It was an absolutely true story. In Operation High Jump, August 26, 1946, basically a group of ships, aircraft carriers, went down to an expedition led by Admiral Byrd to Antarctica. And it was a post-World War II journey. And the public mission that's on paper was to establish an Antarctica research base called Little America 4.
Little America 4. And the other part about this is these guys went down there, the military and the Navy, armed to the teeth.
Yes.
They were armed. So why would they go down there armed? That's where the conspiracy theorists are going to come into play here, that they had to go down there and fight the Fourth Reich. And the secret Nazi UFO technology that was taking off from the ice in Antarctica. We're going to need to take a break here in just a minute. So to set this up for our return, there was a very, very famous newspaper article that came out in a Chilean newspaper. I don't know the name of the newspaper. I'm sure that you do. But where these quotes came from Admiral Byrd about some aviation technology that he had witnessed down there, and so had the military. What were some of the quotes that came out of that article?
Basically, just to sum up those quotes, in the newspaper they were saying, or Admiral Byrd was basically giving a warning to the U.S., and they were saying that there's a threat of flying crafts that can fly from pole to pole. And this came up in one article in a Chilean newspaper, but never acknowledged anywhere else.
The article itself, I've looked into it, and one of the things that I found interesting in looking into the article is that the different JPEG versions of it I've seen on the net over the years, they've actually been different. Right, it looks like somebody may have actually created this article. This is don't quote me here. I don't want to state this as fact, but I saw with my own eyes different versions of this article with different verbiage in it too as well, which says to me it may have been created, and it quite possibly was never even in a Chilean newspaper to begin with. What have you found with the article?
I found the article, like yourself, to be very suspect, but there is quotes that I found that are very similar. And one of the reasons why Admiral Byrd was down there was that he believed that in the future, with the advancement of technology and aircrafts, that it would be possible for foreign nations to use Antarctica as a cover to fly over the poles and then attack from this type of way. So I believe the truth of this is that he was kind of forecasting a future where they would want to go down to Antarctica to secure Antarctica, put a base there, which was Little America 4, because they believe that it's very possible in the future that these type of aircraft could exist.
And we need to take a break right here, but where would you attack? What would you attack from Antarctica? It's not the same as Greenland, right? Where you could, it's a shortcut over to the Soviet Union, or Alaska, where it's a shortcut, and it's a shortcut over to China or to Europe. What are you going to attack from Antarctica? Easter Island? What are you going to attack? New Zealand is, you could do a surprise attack on New Zealand. I don't understand the logic there. You could attack the southern tip of Argentina?
I think it's something completely different, because articles have come out later admitting that Admiral Byrd was going down there to actually secure Antarctica as U.S. They were going to try to claim it after the war for its resources, for its landmass, for strategic positions.
Very interesting. Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Jason Quitt, Quittspiracies, and we'll continue with Antarctica when we come back. Our friend Brad Olson just went to Antarctica, which kind of throws all of this into a weird tailspin. We'll be right back after this short break. It's Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Jason Quitt, our Quittspiracy Special. Before we get back to discussing these conspiracy theories, and right now we're discussing Antarctica, I want to remind everybody that June 26th and 27th, 2020, coming up in just a few months, will be over in the United Kingdom for the Awakening Conference in Manchester. Eric Von Daniken, Richard Dolan, Nick Pope, Grant Cameron, Billy Carson, Paula Harris, 12 other speakers, and it is going to be great. Got all of the information that you need over at awakeningufo.com. Now, Jason, this is where I start to conflict with Antarctica, in that I don't need Nazi bases. I don't consider any of this Fourth Reich reptilian conspiracy stuff. when I ponder about Antarctica and what could be down there. It could be Atlantis. There could be Antarctica could have moved into that position with plate shifting. There could be that. It was a tropical place at one time. We have found evidence of trees and leaves and grass and fauna. So there's that element of it. What is hidden underneath the ice? Could there be an ancient civilization from 500,000 years ago that existed on Antarctica that we not only do we not know about, but should not exist? I think about all of these ideas and theories all of the time. Could there be a crash saucer underneath the ice? All of this is possibility. And but I consider all of these thoughts independently on my own, without any consideration of Adolf Hitler and the Fourth Reich. So when we think about Antarctica, there are all of these other conspiracies that are there that have nothing to do with Nazi bases, right?
Absolutely. And another one is also tied in with Admiral Byrd. And it has to do with this supposed lost diary of Admiral Byrd that's out there. People could read about it on the internet. And it basically goes into him flying over Antarctica, seeing a hole in the ice, and it's big enough to fly through. And he goes through and he goes into the inner earth. And he has a meeting with these beings that live under the earth. And he comes back with that information and knowledge. And then that's what really the expedition to Antarctica really was trying to go back to the entrance of that hollow earth. So there's all these other conspiracies tied in with this.
Yeah, I was approached a couple of years ago by a Fadernaut whose grandfather was the pilot for Admiral Byrd. Not only with Operation High Jump, but other military expeditions that Admiral Byrd had went on, and he was his pilot. And he brought me a letter from Admiral Byrd in which his father was given some accommodation and some medals for some of the things that they had done, and Admiral Byrd's comments about his father and stuff. So I got a copy. He gave me a copy of the letter and information about his grandfather and his pictures and stuff. But all of the diary, all of his grandfather's effects taken. Right. So that's it, and it lends to what you're suggesting here. But there are people out there like this Fadernaut that approached me that are directly connected to this. And again, it leans back to these stories, because when you have some things that are factual, you can turn around and apply it to these various conspiracy theories and say, hey, if this is true, then this other situation could be true.
Absolutely. And I'm not the end-all be-all. I'm just kind of giving my, unbiased, balanced, this is what people say and this is what the historical record says.
Yes. And now, so when we go with conspiracy number one, the Nazi bases, you're giving that one pipe.
Yes, I'm going to have to.
You're going to give that one pipe. And I want to turn this over to the Fadernauts now. When we go to conspiracy number two, which is Operation High Jump, going down there and fighting UFOs, and there Admiral Byrd witnessing secret aircraft that could fly from pole to pole in a matter of minutes. I think was the quote that was attributed to him. What do you give that on a scale of 1 to 4 pipes?
You know what? It's very difficult to prove this one. And, I'd love to give it 1 pipe, but I think I'm going to go more with the 2 pipes. That, there might be some truth to those stories that came out.
I'm going to go 2 pipes too. I'm going to go 2 pipes with conspiracy number 2. That he may have seen something that he couldn't explain.
Yes. Yeah. I completely think that's plausible, and I think it shook him up. And a lot of people talk about this fight, like they were actually fighting UFOs. And when you look that up and you try to find out, the casualties, what was lost, there was casualties on this expedition, and there was a plane that was lost in this expedition. And there were survivors of that plane crash, and there were people that did not survive that plane crash. And the story that is public, it says that they were just flying in a snowstorm.
In a blizzard.
A blizzard. They lost control and crashed.
Right. But there are those that are going to say that they were fighting flying saucers and got shot down.
Right. And then there is nothing in the record that could help us prove those theories.
Now, is there anything in the record at all? So we have that part of it. Is there anything in the record that Admiral Byrd went down there to fight the Nazis that were at the secret submarine base? No, I haven't been able to find anything of the sort. And, we could argue that, it's just been whitewashed and, it's a need to know thing, so we wouldn't be able to find it. But there's another story that goes along with this is that, they did go down to establish this Little America 4, to establish this base. And they actually started construction of it. So there's a physical base there that was constructed. But they started in January to build this. And by the time February came around, it was too harsh a winter. They couldn't continue their work, and they decided that they would leave Antarctica, and they actually went back, and they left. And, if you think of it that way, even today in Antarctica, very few people stay on the island or on the continent in wintertime. It's extremely harsh and nothing can get done. Only the most hardcore people stay during that time of the year. Okay, I'm going to do a rapid fire at you. Entrance to the hollow earth. 1 to 4 pipes.
2.
You're going to go 2 pipes.
Sure.
ET races are currently occupying Antarctica, and we're cooperating with them. 1 to 4 pipes.
I would give it 2 pipes just because that is the most logical place on the entire planet where a civilization could hide.
Ancient hidden cities under the ice. 1 to 4 pipes.
Actually, I would go 3.
Yeah, I would go 3. I would go 3 to, well, until they find one, you can't go to 4. So it's not an official GTFO. So I'm going to go 3 pipes there too as well. UFOs hidden under the ice. Many movies made about this. Everything from the X-Files to what's the one with Kurt Russell? The Thing, right? The Thing 1 and 2, both great movies. Lots of UFOs hidden under the ice in Antarctica. Where are you going with that? 1 to 4 pipes.
I'm going to say 1, and I'll tell you why.
What?
I'll tell you why. I'm going to tell you why.
Man,
there has been photographs.
I'm ending this show. I'm ending this show right now.
There's photographs around the internet that's been placed everywhere in PowerPoint presentations, movies, blogs that show an opening in the ice and a UFO sticking out of it.
Right.
And they say these are real coordinates. This is a real photograph of a whistleblower. But that photograph actually came from a movie. And that movie was called The Orion Conspiracy.
Yes.
And it was made by a French filmmaker.
Yes. And I've seen all of those images. And then I have seen a couple of other images in Google Earth that you can go and look at that are pretty dang convincing. One of them is it looks like a hatch and a doorway. It is a hatch and a doorway, and you can go to Google Earth and look at it. I don't know what that is. If it's some existing base that there was a hatch and a doorway and now it's covered with snow, but it looks pretty convincing to me. Is it a UFO under the ice? I don't know. Is it something ancient? I don't know. But the odds of, like you said, anywhere on Earth, if there's going to be a UFO hidden under the ice, it's going to be Antarctica. And I'm going to go 2.5 pipes on this one.
Okay, I'll give you another reason is if there is satellite image of a UFO in Antarctica, I'm pretty sure we have a black budget, especially in the United States, that would run down there and remove it. So if there was anything there that was visible or known about, I'm pretty sure it would be long gone by now.
So, okay, you're going one pipe. I'm going 2.5. And I'm going 2.5 because Antarctica is big. It's old. It's unexplored, virtually unexplored. We didn't know what's going on down there. And the fact that you can't fly over Antarctica and the military restrictions that are there, it seems like they are hiding something. What they're hiding, I don't know. But I think that there is a UFO. There is a flying saucer hidden under the ice in Antarctica, but we haven't seen it yet. We haven't found it officially.
And I'll just say, Antarctica conspiracy itself, there is definitely something that is hidden in Antarctica.
Now, one of our mutual friends, great friend of this show, Brad Olson, just went down to Antarctica and went to a few of the base camps down there, did it via sailboat. I think that's totally crazy, but he did it. And which proves that there is no wall of ice down there, going back to the flat earth side of things. But he did go around and he asked very courageously to the bosses of each of these camps, the leaders of these camps, about UFOs. And he basically got laughed off of Antarctica. What does that ultimately say to you? Is that, they're keeping this under wraps and that's how they respond to it? Or that he was laughed off of Antarctica because it's just an outrageous question?
Well, first, I want to commend him being the only person in this community to actually do this and go down and record it. I mean, he has pictures and photographs. I think I saw one even of a penguin.
It's incredible. Incredible.
Yeah. And so he did it. And he went down there with what intention?
To find out. Yeah.
Exactly. So and Brad is determined. He will ask every single person. I know Brad. He will go out there and get these things done. So for him to come back with basically no information really about UFOs. And, to set the record straight, I 100% believe in UFOs. Okay, I 100% believe in alien life. That's just my own personal belief. So 4 pipes on all that stuff for me. But for the locals that live there, I guarantee you they see some weird stuff. I'm sure there's anomalies. I'm sure there's lights in the sky or lights on the ground. I'm sure there's a contact experience that happens down in Antarctica. To attribute that to, let's say, like a Nazi base or a hidden world over there, it's kind of stretching the beliefs a little. So I think Brad did a big service to this community, and I hear he might be going back, so that's even better for us.
Yeah, and going back when Brad approached me, this was probably 2 years ago now. So he comes, okay, Jimmy, we're going to Antarctica, and this is what we're going to do. Here are the dates, and you want to go with us, you and Rita. And I'm like, dude, you're not going to Antarctica. And that's what you have to start with, that position, right? And then I thought to myself, if anybody that I know is crazy enough to go and do this, it's Brad Olson. And the months went by, he prepped, he got it together, and the next thing you know, he is heading down to Antarctica, and he actually pulled it off. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing, and to tell you the truth, I'm not surprised of the reaction he got. And even for me, if I go up to, let's say I go up north in Ontario, and I start asking locals about UFOs. Actually, it's a terrible example because everybody in Ontario knows about UFOs. So, But if you go to, let's say, in Toronto, we're a very populated city, they'll look at you and laugh at you. Most of them will. So I think that type of reaction, especially for people that live down there and work down there, I think that's pretty common. I still think there is things down in Antarctica, just like there's things in the U.S., just like there's things in Canada and all over the world.
Rita, I want to, I'm looking for the flat earth poll, and I don't see it here. Can you send me the flat earth poll? I need that. I need to get that circulated up here in Twitter. I've got conspiracy number 1, Nazi bases. I've got Operation High Jump. So go over to hashtag F2B, everybody, into the sandbox, and put your vote in on these polls. And when we get to the end of the show, I'll announce the results. But we got to get the flat earth poll up, Rita, if you could get that, and I'll get that circulated out into Twitter and see where we're at. Okay, so one last part about this before we move on is and I've seen some pretty incredible images, and there has been a lot of chatter lately, especially over the last 3, 4, 5 years, about this vast underground complex of volcanic ice tubes, caverns, livable cities, because of the insulation that it is created in these ice caves. That the walls may be ice, but it's like room temperature on the inside, and all of the oxygen and fresh water that you need, and all of this exists underneath the ice. What do you make of that? And that's where this entrance of the inner Earth sits.
You know what? The volcanic activity in Antarctica does do that. And there will be large areas like domes underneath the ice where there can be life forms. It is highly possible that if there was animals, plant life there before, it may still be there. So you can maybe even find a hidden bubble of some type of hidden, I don't want to say city, but some type of environment that's conducive to life.
I watched a video, Jason, 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, of a group of Russians down in Antarctica that found one of these vents, if you want to call it that. And they go in, shoot this video, and they go under the ice. This tube continued. They entered into giant rooms. An absolute incredible video to witness this. And it was huge. It had to have been miles of tunnels. But I didn't see any evidence of human occupation down there. I was looking for that. The video was unedited, showing some pretty incredible geologic features that were there in the ice, but no evidence of any cities. And I don't think they were trying to hide anything down there.
Yeah, and when you really think of it, Antarctica is basically the size, if not larger, than the entire USA.
Now,
so that's huge.
Now, when you do an astral projection of your body, yes, is it possible to go down to Antarctica and check things out in the second person to see what is really going on?
I've never been able to go to Antarctica to see those things. And if I ever get pulled there, you'll be the first person I call.
Yeah, I need to know. All right. So now let me see if this poll is up. I'm going to get this up during the break. Rita, if you could, I don't see it here. I need the Earth is flat. Okay, Rita, that's on another computer. I need it from you. Okay, hold on. I hate to do this. Okay, when we come back after the break, we're going to jump to Nazi moon bases. And what I find interesting here is all of this is kind of connected, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems like all these stories are actually just one story carried forward.
Here we go. Rita, I found it. The Earth is flat. Let me get this up there, too, as well. I want everybody, all of you Fadernauts, to go in and hit these polls. 1 pipe, 2 pipe, 3 pipes, 4 pipes. 1 pipe is the eye roll, all the way to 4 pipes. Absolutely true conspiracy. Flat Earth poll. Let's get this up. I've got this. Oh, man. Here we go. Okay, so I got that up. And when we come back after the break, the Nazi bases. Have you seen Iron Sky?
Unfortunately, I have.
Okay. No, it's a great movie. Both of them. Have you seen Iron Sky 2?
I have. I watched them both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Incredible movies, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now, do you think... do you think that this solidifies the Nazi moon base conspiracy theory, or is it just poking fun at all of this?
I think it's poking fun of it, but those movies take the information that we're talking about and going to discuss, and they ran with it perfectly.
Oh, they did run with it. And these are both movies, Iron Sky 1 and Iron Sky 2, I believe were like crowd-funded independent movies. The graphics, incredible. What they were able to do with the funding in the movie, incredible. The music, incredible. The script is incredible. But they went down bullet point for bullet point in all of the conspiracy theories going back decades and put everything into this movie, didn't they?
Yeah, and for that, it's perfect. I tell everybody to watch those movies.
Iron Sky 2, which I enjoyed Iron Sky 1 so much. I put it out there on social media. I told everybody, you got to go and check out this movie. Iron Sky 2, I didn't think there was any way it would be able to touch Iron Sky 1. Iron Sky 2 was so bleeping funny and so well done. Everybody's in the movie. They got Steve Jobs in the movie.
Yeah.
Everybody, and they didn't stop at anything in putting these theories forward, and I really enjoyed it. I absolutely. But this is the thing, and this is why I'm bringing it up. I watched this Iron Sky 1 and 2, and I thought to myself, okay. There are people out there that have been pushing these theories forward, and they are now going to say, this movie was made for us. This movie, it may be making fun of this, but it's putting all of the evidence out there. And it happened, didn't it, Jason?
Yes. Yes. And there's many people that wait for movies to come out and say, they're putting disclosure in the movies. They're getting this information out the best way they can, which is through Hollywood.
Now, wouldn't there be an ability to get out a telescope and look at the moon and see the evidence of a Nazi base on the moon?
Well, we actually do have satellites that go around the moon, and it's very detailed satellites. And, this kind of goes back to, part of the flat Earth conspiracy is you can't even go up into space. But they also say that NASA hires people to create fake digital images.
Of course. And that's what I'm saying. So you and I in our backyard with a high-powered telescope, we can check out the moon at pretty high resolution just from our backyard, right? I mean, wouldn't we be able to, you don't need the polluted NASA-edited evidence of their mapping of the moon. We don't need that. We can actually check out the moon for ourselves, right?
We can. There is high-powered telescopes that can get right up into the moon's surface, and you would be able to see if there was a vast city there or roads. It would be very visible. But then they say, well, it's not on that side of the moon. It's on the dark side of the moon. And
hold on, Kat. What do you got? Who are you calling cuckoo? That's what I want to know. Let's take our break right here. When we come back, Nazi moon bases right here on Fade to Black. It's Jason Quitt and our Quittspiracy Special event. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, here we go. Nazi moon bases with Jason Quitt. Now, if you've ever missed a live show like this one, it's very easy. Just go and get our podcast. It is just $2 per month. Go to jimmychurchradio.com. Click on that podcast banner. Get it. All the apps that you need, it's right there. We update it every single night after the live show, so you'll have it waiting for you in the morning. You'll have it after the show tonight if you just go and get our podcast. It is just $2 per month. Now, this is before we move on to Nazi moon bases, Jason. It seems that if you are a conspiracy theorist, those conspiracy theorists out there are either all in or not. And if you bend a little bit on one conspiracy theory, then you're officially not in the club, and you get trolled. Right? And why is that you have to believe in every single conspiracy theory in the world, or you're not a conspiracy theorist? You have to be all in. Why is it that way?
I don't know. There's extremists everywhere. And I just want to, put out the record. I am a conspiracy theorist. I love conspiracies, and there are conspiracies.
That's right. There are conspiracies. And when it comes to Nazi bases on the moon, that's one consideration. That's one conspiracy theory. That doesn't change the fact that I believe that aliens have been on the moon. And E.T. may have a base on that moon right now. Just like when we're checking out Jupiter and its moons, we want to go to, you know what I mean? We want to go to Europa first. We think that there is life, and that's what we do. E.T., if they know about planet Earth, they know about our moon, and our moon is big and it's beautiful. It's a planet. It just happens to be a planet that's in orbit around our Earth. And of course you would have a base there. And I would definitely be open to an alien base or an alien presence on our moon that continues to this day. But that has nothing to do with Nazis, in my opinion. So let's go to, where did this whole Nazi moon base thing originate?
Well, almost immediately after World War II, all these stories started to come out, just like the submarine story, where they actually survived. Adolf Hitler survived, and they moved to Antarctica, or they moved to the U.S. with Operation Paperclip. And so there was this whole idea that in reality, the Nazis won World War II, and that's also another conspiracy in itself. So they have all these kind of stories. And one of the first books that came out was right after the war. It was a German book called Rocket Ship Galileo. And this is in 1947, and the book is about three teenagers who travel to the moon, and they discover a secret Nazi base there. So this is, I think, the first book that came out with that kind of theme about that. And then Philip K. Dick, which everybody knows, famous writer, in 1962 he wrote the book The Man in the High Castle, which basically the whole framing of that book is that the Nazis won the war, and because of that, they colonized the moon, Venus, and Mars.
Great book, great story, parallel worlds, possibilities, alternate, universe type of situation, which Philip K. Dick was amazing when he wrote these things. And The Man in the High Castle is one of the great stories in modern fiction literature. There's no question about that. And it certainly would incite imagination. And you're absolutely right. If you go back to the 1950s, all of the UFO researchers in the United States and around the world, all of them were researching Nazi UFOs and UFO technology. This was part of the culture that continues to this day about Nazi flying saucers and the possibility of them doing this research during the war, which appears to be, fairly accurate.
Yeah, it's definitely plausible that they had research into this, and we can actually see this through Project Paperclip, where they started the space program, NASA. All of this was started by those top-ranking Nazis that were taken over from World War II.
Now, how did the reptilians get tied into this? Was it the same as Antarctica?
It's the same storyline with Antarctica, and originally it goes to the story of the Vril, and basically secret societies in Germany, and that supposedly they received this technology through downloads from the Vril Society from I can't say this word. Albert, I'm not going to say it on radio and screw it up so much. But they received information from an ET race, which were schematics on how to build these devices, these machines. Some would say UFOs or time machines like the Bell. They were given this information and given to the Nazi Party, and then they started to research this. So they had this connection already to ETs. And when we started to talk about reptilians, and I think this is going back to David Icke in the early 90s. I think this is when the whole reptilian mythology, if I'll call it that, the negative ETs, kind of infiltrated the story of the Vril and the Nazis, that it was the reptilians that gave the Nazis this technology, and they sided with the negative ETs, and therefore they helped them with the base in Antarctica. And then in World War II, when they after World War II, when they created the secret space program, they created bases on the moon for these Nazis.
Now, and this is where part of this conspiracy theory is based in the historical record, that the Vril Society, this group of women, were studiers of the paranormal and the supernatural. Back then, there was a lot of seances going on and channeling of different entities and beings. The Vril Society, whether these women actually channeled actual ETs, that's up for debate. But they were channeling in these seances and these sessions that they were doing. That is part of the historical record. Whether they channeled ET technology and gave that to the Nazis and were directly connected to Hitler, that's a whole nother consideration altogether, but they're able to tie the two together, aren't they? Which also created the Vril flying saucer. And this is something that has been out there for a number of years.
Exactly. So there are truth to these elements. 100%. Hitler and Himmler were very, very much into the secret occult. They were very much fans or connected to Vril, the Vril Society, and other societies as well, not just the Vril. And if there was information coming through, it would have been the elites in the Nazi Party that would receive that information and do whatever with that information. So it's 100% accurate, 4 pipes that was going on at that time, I believe.
So 4 pipes on the Vril.
Yeah.
You'll go 4 pipes?
I'll go 4 pipes.
I'll go 4 pipes on the Vril, too. I'm going to go 3.5. I'm going to go 3.5. I'm going to go highly likely. I haven't seen the direct connection back to the SS or any of the secret space program stuff that they were, going back to the V2 or anything else that was happening. I don't know if there's a direct connection there. But if we're going to stay just on Vril, was Vril real? I'm going to say 4 pipes if you take out the UFO element.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 4 pipes there. Because staying 4 pipes with Vril and flying saucer technology, I got to back off on that. I've got to back off. I got to go 3 pipes. I got to go 3. I can't go 4 pipes.
I'll change my. I agree with you.
No, you can go 4 pipes. Don't let me. Okay, so now, Nazi bases on the moon. 1 pipe,
Yes.
4 pipes. Where are we going with that?
Well, if we're saying, if I say bases on the moon, I think it's actually 3 pipes.
Nazi bases on the moon.
But if it's Nazi bases on the moon, I'm going to say 1 pipe.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. ET bases on the moon, 3 pipes. Solid
Yes.
3 pipes. Solid possibility. Nazi bases on the moon, 1 pipe. Okay, so let's go with, let me take it well, I should have done this in reverse. Nazi bases on the moon staffed by reptilians. It should have been the first poll.
Yes, but that, for me, that would have been a positive 1 pipe.
A positive 1 pipe. And then Nazi bases on the moon, 1 pipe. Vril, you're going 3 pipes. I'm going 3 pipes with the Vril as well. And as this starts to kick up, we've got the how do I say this? The moon is a spaceship, right? That the moon and all of this is, stems off of these conspiracy theories. Is the moon artificial? Is it is it the Death Star? 1 pipe or 4 pipes?
I'm going to go with 2 on this one.
As a possibility.
Yes, because the moon does have anomalies to it. And those anomalies are... It seems like the moon is in the most perfect place for us to survive. If it was off by a little, everything on the Earth would change. The weather systems would change. The food cycles would change. We would change, and probably not for the better. And just the ratios, the design, the scale of the moon in regards to its ratios between the Earth, the moon, and the sun is very mathematical. It's very precise. So there is some type of possibility that the moon may have been placed in a very specific orbit, is all I can say.
Okay, let's move on. We've got the polls up. I can't wait to get these results in. And I know that everybody's going to ask for overtime tonight. We all know that we are heading straight into overtime. And hopefully by the end of the show, I need everybody to go and participate in these polls so we can get some action at the end of the night. I didn't create the polls, so I don't have access to where we are right now. I can't give you an update, but we will get to all of that. Now let's...
Well, I want to ask you a question, because this is a big topic. I've even seen this come up from celebrities on Twitter asking people, "Do you believe that the moon landing was faked?"
Yeah, that's man, that is tough. That is so tough for me. And I don't know. I think the answer is I don't know. There's actually 2. There's 2 reasons where I start to get a little bit confused on this. And one of them is the technology that we had in the 1960s. Now, I don't want to take anything away from the men and women that work for NASA and the Air Force and the astronauts and the space program and all of that, and the initiative that was created by President Kennedy at Rice University in Texas, and when he said, by the end of this decade. But when you go to the Air and Space Museum at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., and you walk up to an Apollo capsule, which I did, and poke my head on the inside of the door and looked around, that just doesn't look to me like technology that's going to make it to the moon and back. It just doesn't feel that way. It doesn't look that way to me. But then again, I wasn't there. And then there's the other side to all of this is why haven't we been back? And now it seems that we have all of these technical hurdles in front of us. It's the radiation, it's the Van Allen belt that NASA's still trying to figure out how to get through the. Oh, wait a minute! I thought we overcame that in the 1960s. How can that be an issue today? This is a public stance by NASA today. Yes. So I'm a bit confused about that. I don't know why we don't go out and beyond a 400-mile limit here on Earth, and why this is now an issue when this was not an issue for anybody before. So I'm a little bit perplexed with that. I am.
Well, let me tell you a story. I went down to NASA down in Florida, and me being a conspiracy guy, every time there was someone that I was able to ask, like an astronaut or someone, I would always say, well, why did you close it down? Why aren't you going back? And the only thing I could tell you is they don't really give an answer, but you could tell they look defeated when you ask that question. And that was before Elon Musk and his rockets.
Right. And why is it now with the technology that we have today? And I'm talking about Bezos, and I'm talking about Musk, I'm talking about NASA, I'm talking about Boeing, all of them that are designing different crewed modules to go back to the moon. And suddenly, all of this is just like this technical thing that we can't overcome. When we built literally tin cans in the 1960s, and we were shooting up to the moon every other month. And I just don't get why these issues are now arising, and they can't crest the mountain here. It seems like they were defeated left and right, and they're just not ready. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. And you know what? If the conspiracy theorists, I almost said if I'm wrong, if the conspiracy theorists are wrong with the moon missions and Apollo 11, and it turns out that we actually went to the moon, I'm okay with that. Because I've never said that we didn't go to the moon. I just want to know why we didn't go back. I don't know. And could it be the alien element there? Maybe
maybe we're not allowed.
Maybe we're not allowed. And I think, and I give that 3 pipes. And I do. I'll give that 3 pipes. Did we go to the moon? I don't have an answer for that. There is such strong evidence in both directions. There really is. There's really strong evidence in both directions on this.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I saw, and it stuck with me, because when I was at NASA and they show the spacesuit of Neil Armstrong, and they're like, it's a very proud display, and it says, this is the spacesuit that he took his first step. The famous first step. This is the spacesuit. And when you look at the shoes and the bottom of the shoes, they're flat with this kind of round thing at the front.
Yeah, I saw that too. And actually, he wore an overshoe on those shoes. He wore an overshoe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's an explanation.
Yeah, there was a reason for that. Look, when you go in and out of the lunar module, you're covered with dust. And you don't want that dust inside of the lunar module. And one of the things that was dusty were the shoes. The moon dust is like broken glass, like ground glass, right? And you just don't want that everywhere in your eyes and everything else inside of the lunar module. So they had overshoes. So those were taken off. And I don't know if they were left outside, but they were left not inside of the lunar module. So 2 different shoes. You had the inner shoe and the outer shoe.
So you just answered my conspiracy theory.
Yeah. It was like a slip-on. Like a slip-on.
And then there's another thing I looked at that I still haven't found the answer to yet, and it's probably very obvious, like what you just said. is that there are pictures of the lunar module landing and taking off the moon.
Mm-hmm.
There's pictures. And I'm thinking, who's taking that picture of this thing landing or taking off?
Right.
If, like, that doesn't make any sense unless there's two modules that they're going to go into.
Yeah, and this is my understanding with that. Look, that's an obvious thing that all of us with an inquisitive mind, you're going to see that in question. I mean, it's obvious to me. How are you going to shoot Neil Armstrong coming off of, taking his first steps, unless it was Buzz Aldrin who came off first and he's holding the camera? How did that happen? Apparently there was a camera mounted to one of the legs of the lunar module that filmed him coming down off of the ladder. I heard that. I also heard another account, and I don't want everybody to go, Jimmy, you're so wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. But I heard that he might have come down, put the camera there, then climbed back up the ladder and reshot it. Right? and okay, all right. So I've heard both versions, and I've read both accounts. I'll go with either one, but that Buzz Aldrin definitely was second off, that Neil was first. Doesn't make any sense. Now, as far as the takeoff goes, that was done automatically and was timed to film the lunar module separating from the base on the moon, and as it took off. My question is, I guess they had some type of antenna, right? Some kind of dish on the moon that was broadcasting that feed out, and it wasn't on the lunar module itself, because how else is that going to be filmed? I've always wondered about that.
But nothing was digital back then. It was all film, like actual film. And this is the other thing, is that,
not true. Hold on before you say that. Not true. Yeah. Of course, they're taking film stills, but all of the live broadcast, that wasn't film. All the live broadcast was a video feed from the moon.
Okay. So thank you for correcting.
Yes. There's other parts of this that spin off of, and we will get to when we come back. We're going to talk about Roswell. You're right, Jason. We completely ran out of time tonight, so we're going to come back and cover Roswell and a couple of others. We've got an entire list that we didn't get to tonight. Is this the video that was broadcast around the world? And this is where I call BS on NASA. This is where I raise a huge red flag. The video feed that went into all of the homes, all of the news broadcasts around the world of Apollo 11 was third and fourth generation. Okay, so the video feed's coming from the moon, going to a projector, so that's number one. The second generation is coming out of the projector onto a screen, like you have in the movie theater. So that is going onto a screen, and then there is a television camera focused on the screen, and that is what went out. So it's like third, fourth generation removed, and that's why it's all fuzzy and broken up, and it's not sharp and it's not detailed, because you're looking at a projection of a projector, right? Wow. Now, yeah. What do you have there? You also have distortion of the angle of the camera that is on the screen, right? It's not perfectly lined up, so you've got that distortion, not distortion of the edges, which that happens anyway. I'm talking about the angle. So everything is not perfectly straight, right? Because the camera is off. Even if it's a degree or two, that angle is distorted, and you're not looking at things level, and you're not looking at things horizontal and vertical, and that is now twisted. And why would NASA choose to do it that way? Why didn't they take the direct video feed from the moon, right? That feed, and send that out to the networks? And why wasn't that the recorded version of what we have for the historical record? What we have for the historical record is the videotape. Now it's fourth generation removed of the projection from a movie screen. That's messed up, and there's no excuse for that. And when we go back to the moon, Jason, we got to head to a break in 20 seconds. When we go back to the moon in 2024, we better have 4K high def color video feeds. Nothing else will be acceptable. Right? We can't go around and do what we did the last time that we were on the moon. And there's going to be less of a chance for anything to be doctored. And will there be an ability to pick up this feed independently from NASA or government organizations? And this can go directly into the media, and they can pick up the feeds directly. Can you dig what I'm saying? It's a different party in 2024.
And it has to be. It really has to be. And I believe we've been to the moon. Like, I do believe that. I think there was some weird circumstances on the original moon landing, and this is why there's so many conspiracy theories about it, because there probably was a secondary shoot just in case the mission failed, and America can't fail.
No, and that I'm going to go on that. I'm going to go 4 pipes. I'm going to go 4 pipes. I believe that they had videotape and had prepped in case anything went wrong, that they had actual footage that they were going to show. I totally agree with that. There's no way that Apollo was going to fail.
That's right.
That's out of the question.
So it's like a conspiracy and not a conspiracy at the same time.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm going 4 pipes on that.
I agree.
Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, Jason Quitt. This is our Quittspiracy Special. When we come back, it's Roswell. Whoa. Here we go on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. Jason Quitt. You can follow him on Twitter at Jason_Quitt. That's Quitt with 2 T's. We've got everything up in our Twitter feed. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. What a great show tonight. Jason Quitt, Quittspiracy. Got all the polls up. Moon landing. Man, I can't vote on this. How do I vote on the moon landing? I'm going to go, we did it. That's it. I told everybody.
Yeah, we did it. We did it.
I'm looking at some of these results that are in. Nazi moon bases. Let's go there. Plausible at 22%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
4 pipes. We got 10% on 4 pipes. Likely 35%.
Wow.
Holy crap. Let's see here. Antarctica, Admiral Byrd, Operation High Jump. Where did you go on that?
That was 4 pipes. That was,
it
actually happened for sure.
Yeah, it's 53% right now at pipes likely. 3 pipes. Let's see, Antarctica conspiracy Nazis have secret bases. I'm going, wow. Very interesting on that. We've got 37%, 3 pipes likely on Nazi bases in Antarctica. Earth is flat. Wow. Okay, we've got a lot of votes too, man. A lot of votes. A lot more than 60% eye roll, 34% 4 pipes.
Wow.
Yeah, there's no gray area here. There's no plausible. Likely is at 1%. And GTFO rocking at 34%. Oh man, that's pretty interesting. Okay, I'll get to the rest of these results by the end of the show. Let's let's jump over to Roswell. And I almost want to do my vote at the very beginning of Roswell, but
I'll do that with you too.
Okay. I'm going 100% government cover-up conspiracy. I believe that a UFO crashed in Roswell. I'm going 4 pipes.
I'm going 4 pipes too.
Okay. Let's, Rita, do we have... This is so much fun. Rita, let's get the Roswell poll going right now. I don't think she's got it up yet. And no, she stopped at moon landing. Okay. Rita, we need Roswell up, but I'm going 4 pipes on Roswell for so many different reasons. But let's go ahead and start. What's Roswell all about, in your opinion?
I believe it is the greatest cover-up that we've watched in live action when it comes to UFOs, because you have a reputable newspaper, July 8th, that proclaims right from the military, right from the Air Force, quoting them, basically saying that they captured a flying saucer on a ranch in Roswell. And that was like huge news. And the day after, retract that statement and put out this story, which I have to say is a crazy, crazy story, that it's just a weather balloon. And then they have an obvious photograph of them like holding up this very, very fragile balloon-like material. It's almost like a tinfoil and paper. It's pathetic, to tell you the truth, when you look at that. And, if you're in the Air Force, like really, if you're in the Air Force and you're going to a crash site and you see a crashed craft, whatever that is, a flying saucer, something, it's in front of you. You've seen it, right? And then to turn around and say that it's a weather balloon made out of this flimsy, fragile material. If you're an Air Force officer and you can't tell the difference between a crash site of a vehicle made out of metal with debris and a simple balloon, you should not be in the military.
And especially, we have to note this, the Roswell Army Airfield at that time was the most secretive, insanely protected base on planet Earth, yes. Period. That is where our atomic weapons were deployed from, number one. Number two, it is going to be staffed by the best and the brightest. End of story. And to go from crashed retrieval of a flying saucer to weather balloon is too extreme. The Roswell newspaper, the Daily Record, only published the press release from Roswell, right?
Yeah.
That's what they published. This was a press release that was written, poured over, checked, and double-checked, as the military does, coming off of the most insanely protected area on planet Earth, which was Roswell Army Airfield at that time. And if you're going to do a press release about a retrieved flying saucer coming off of that press public relations center from the Army Airfield, they're not doing that willy-nilly.
No.
That is a serious press release. And that's what was printed in the Roswell Daily Record. They didn't make the story up. This was given to them from the Air Force, the Army Air Force at that time. And what else do we have to go on? And we have to depend on the truth here. And if they wanted to cover up, they would have covered it up at that point. Right?
Yes.
It would have been a different type of press release.
Yes. And, when you read it with those type of eyes, and that they were testing nuclear weapons there, that there was advanced technology at this site that was hidden from the rest of the world, like very top secret projects in that area. And they're coming forward saying, what is this that just landed in our backyard? that raises a huge eyebrow, and the quickness of them pulling the story and changing the story is the most obvious giveaway that they shouldn't have said a thing about this.
That's right. Now, this is how effective the conspiracy of the cover-up was. International press was converging on Roswell. Reporters, photographers, journalists from around the world are all on airplanes traveling to Roswell, New Mexico. And when they came out with the weather balloon story the next day, General Ramey with Jesse Marcel, then all of the journalists and the reporters turned around. They didn't get to Roswell. They merely went back to the cities that they departed from. That's where the conspiracy started. It was so effective that 3 days later, it was no longer a story at all. Nobody was talking about it. And nobody talked about it for 50 years.
Until
Jesse Marcel came forward. And this is the thing. Jesse Marcel is the guy that went to Mac Brazel's ranch and went out and saw this, went back to Roswell Army Airfield and said, hey, we got a crashed flying saucer out here. We got to get out there and start collecting these parts and let's figure out what's going on. The Army Air Force turns around, heads out with all of their the GIs, went out and canvassed the area and picked up all of the debris and took it out. That's who. It wasn't like this was third-hand information.
Yes.
It was the original investigating officer from Roswell, Jesse Marcel. And he's the whistleblower that brought all of this forward. That being said, Jason,
yes.
Again, I will say this on the record. I have gone through the historical record from 1947 until Jesse Marcel, and nowhere, not one, not James McDonald, not any UFO researcher throughout the years, not one mentioned Roswell. Not in the 1950s, not in the 1960s, not in the 1970s. There are mild reports out there. Well, somebody mentioned it to me. No, it was an effective cover-up of the story. So much so that you can go to any UFO documentary, any UFO documentary from the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, go and look where they cover every single case throughout history. They cover the Foo Fighters. You know, they cover more. They cover everything, but no mention of Roswell. None.
And then I think it was in the 80s with Stanton Friedman and a couple others.
Yes,
that started to.
It was, and the part about this. When Jesse Marcel came forward, and it was Bill Moore and Stanton Friedman and others that were converging on the story once Jesse Marcel came forward. All of this was fresh. Yeah. All of this was fresh, and if you go back, it was so fresh. If you go back to the original Art Bell broadcast of Coast to Coast and go back and listen to Art Bell learning about Roswell.
Wow.
Learning about it, right? This was just coming. It's a pretty incredible situation that the UFO community went through in the early 90s when it came to Roswell. So many books came out. So many witnesses came forward, and suddenly you have all of this information out there. But if you go before that and you jump into 1978, 77, 1970, go and look at any UFO documentary, and there's no mention of Roswell anywhere. It was a pretty effective cover-up, and they wanted that story dead.
Yeah. And, another tale sign that this is not supposed to be out there is because of the heat and the eyes on Roswell and all these people writing books about it and talking about it. the U.S. Air Force had to release a document to tell the story of Roswell in 1994.
Let's actually talk about this for a second, because
Sure.
when the Roswell report came out from the General Accounting Office, the GAO, where it was called Roswell Case Closed, where the General Accounting Office went back to the Air Force, they went back to the Army, and they said, we want all of your records on this. And it turns out that they came back, well, the phone records are destroyed, the recordings are destroyed, the records, the budgets and everything. We just don't have that. It's buried here. It's destroyed here. We lost it, and what have you. It was shredded. So the GAO had very little to go on. But what ended up happening in the GAO report was and I remember specifically, I was in my car, and I had gotten an email from a friend of mine that had said, dude, have you seen this Roswell Case Closed report from the GAO? And I read a couple of, and anyway, I got in my car and I drove home. I broke every traffic law that you can imagine to get from Culver City to Sherman Oaks, California in rush hour traffic in Los Angeles. I get home and I jump on the internet, I get the GAO report and I read it. And I knew immediately when they brought up Project Mogul and the crash test dummies, I knew the dates.
Yep.
I knew them. Any UFO researcher knew these dates, and that this was a lie. And I went back and then in 1997 and pulled up all the information just to confirm my memory, just to make sure I wasn't imagining things. And I knew that the Air Force and the Army lied to the GAO for this report about the crash test dummies, which didn't happen until 5 years later. 5 years.
Yeah.
And so there you go. Here we have another example of this cover-up, and why are they covering it up? And they wanted to take it another step further, that this was, we were checking nuclear tests that were going on over Russia, and this was more secret than anything else, and we've got to keep this technology secret and how we were going on. It's like, man, BS. Come clean from the word go. Don't say it like this, and don't go on the official record and say it was Project Mogul when that didn't happen for another 5 years, because you're lying, which means everything else is a lie here. You can't say, well, we lied about this. That was that wasn't exactly accurate, but this part of it is true. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah, and I think this was the first time in history that we've seen basically them with their pants down. It's like they completely got caught and they tried everything in their power to cover that up. And yes, it was successful for a while, but then, when you're trying to lie on top of a lie, it's so obvious that there's something very real to this story.
Now, what about let's go a little bit. Hold on for a second. Here's the Roswell Quittspiracy. Thank you for that, Rita. Roswell Quit.
Actually, Mark Torona just said time traveling crash test dummies. That's more plausible than their report, actually.
Okay, now let's stay on this for a second. Let's get this poll up, and I need to go. I'm going for vote, and man, we got 7% that are saying I roll.
That's cool.
Man.
That's why I love having these conversations.
Yeah. We got 80% right now on GTFO. Is this now Annie Jacobson, who I respect, she's a journalist of the highest caliber, suggest in her latest book or her second to latest book, I should say, her Area 51 book,
yes,
that the Roswell crash may have been a German aircraft flown by the Russians with mutated monkeys or babies on board, small humans. And that's what crashed in Roswell, and we had to keep that under wraps because of the technology that was used in this aircraft that the Russians were in possession of. What do you make of that?
Well, for me, it just sounds very outlandish that they would go to that type of.
You would go one pipe. You would go one.
I would go one pipe with that because it just doesn't make any sense, because the whole point of that narrative is to kind of scare and fear the military and the general public of like an alien invasion.
But if I'm smoking weed,
yeah, I
can go 2 pipes on that. I can go 2 pipes. I can kind of feel it. I wouldn't go 1 pipe. It's not out of being a possibility.
But you want to know why it's a possibility is because it follows that whole conspiracy narrative, which is not really a conspiracy, with Mengele in Germany doing experiments on children and people with deformities. So you're taking a true story that's absolutely true, and you're now taking that and morphing it into these deformed children that were basically experimented on by the Nazis. They were placed in craft and then given to the Russians, which I don't understand why, and then dropped off and crashed at Roswell to scare people. It's just, aliens is actually the more simple answer.
Yeah, aliens is the more simple answer there. The problem that I have with Annie's version of this is, how could a craft fly from Russia all the way to New Mexico? You need to be refueling. You need to stop. It wouldn't be a nonstop flight, right?
Yeah.
The other part about it where it's solid is that there is no questions that the Russians and the United States were racing to get to the Luftwaffe technology. There's no question about that. We wanted to get to their airplanes. We wanted to get to their jet engines. We wanted to get to the V2s. We wanted to get to the scientists. We wanted to get to the reports, the testing, all of that. And we took what we could and got it here. Okay, the Russians are right there on the friggin' border of everything, and they had their military there. They were putting stuff on trucks and taking it back to Russia. Yeah. We had to do it other ways, and we eventually got some of that stuff here, no question about it. But the Russians got the best stuff. Right? Now, did they get to an operational flying wing? Did they get to an operational flying saucer? Did they get to the Hannibal? Did they get to one of those? And was, that flown into the United States to scare us? That's, you have one part of it that I believe is absolutely real and factual. I believe it went down that way. But getting the aircraft from Russia to New Mexico, that's where it's a bit of a reach for me.
And I agree that, possibly the Russians would have very advanced craft, but I don't think they would have it at that date of 1947.
Right. So, so 1 pipe to 4 pipes, Russian secret aircraft using Russian Nazi technology. You're going 1 pipe?
I'll go 2. It is a possibility, but it's a low 2.
Yeah, it's a low 2 for me as well. Now, we didn't get to, so this is what we're going to do, everybody. I am going to, let me go back and pull this up. We've got to schedule a part 2 for this. And I will let everybody know that part 2, we will cover Q. That's right. We're going to go Q. Yep. We're going to do MK Ultra. We're going to do 9/11 and Operation Northwoods, and we're going to cover the Denver International Airport, and that will be in show number 2. And we will go ahead and schedule this for next week, and we'll figure that part out a little bit later. But coming back for part 2 may be more exciting than part 1, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I really like this format because we should be just talking about all these different possibilities of conspiracy. and how they relate. Because as you can see, everything that we talked about tonight is a chain. Each conspiracy ties in with the next. And I think that's very important to know.
Yep. And let's see here. The most famous UFO cover-up, Roswell, is we've only got 23 votes in. We're close to 100 votes on these other ones. Roswell is 65% at 4 pipes, GTFO. We've got 4% on an eye roll. 2 pipes plausible at 4.3%. 3 pipes likely at 26%. Okay, we got people getting their heads together there. 4 pipes at 65%. Let's go to the moon landing. We did it at 76%. We did not, 9.5%. Moon is my hood. At 14.3%. Going to moon landing Nazi bases, I roll at 28%. Plausible, 2 pipes, 24%. 3 pipes likely at 40%. Wow. 8%, 4 pipes. That's incredible. Okay, so let's go to Antarctica. I roll 8%, plausible 30%, 3 pipes likely. The winner there at 54%. Wow, 4% comes in at, or 4 pipes comes in at 8%. And the Nazis have a base in Antarctica, 26%. I roll plausible 32%, likely 35%. Is the winner there. And that's 73 votes. That's pretty solid. 75 votes for Flat Earth. I roll 60%. Very smart people. Nothing in the middle. And GTFO, 34% believe that the Earth is flat. Our Fadernauts. And you think they're messing with us, Jason?
So, no, I think they're very honest.
You think the Fadernauts, 34%? 34.7, 35% of the Fadernauts believe that the Earth is flat.
Maybe they are messing with us, but I don't know.
They're hitting that pipe. They're hitting the pipe for sure. But you know what? I have to say we're all winners because we're not destroying each other by giving our opinions on these topics. Absolutely. Jason, Thank you so much, my friend. What a great show. We'll have part 2 of Quittspiracy next week right here on Fade to Black. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you for having me again.
Jason Quitt. And all you got to do is go to thecrystalsun.com. The links are at jimmychurchradio.com. And you can follow Jason at Jason_Twitt. That's Quit with 2 T's right there on our Twitter feed. Fade to Black's executive producers Rita Camarion. Shows produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitola, Mark T. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast only copyrighted 2020 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black of the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tomorrow night, right here on Fade to Black, Deep Prasad. Do not miss that show. Until then, everybody be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.